I teach courses in media studies, specifically courses titled Propaganda, Media and Politics, Media, Politics and the Representations of War. And when Asil came up with this idea of teaching war and peace in the classroom, I thought the first half could be a little easier in terms of teaching about war, but given that America is in a constant state of war, talking about peace might be difficult. But then we should visualize peace in different areas of the world, but also what it means to talk about critical pedagogy and inculcating critical thinking within the student community. The way I set up my classes is to kind of offer a counterpoint to the point. So I do not consider myself like someone like Stanley Fish, who tries to be this kind of a very objective professor there. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to read Stanley Fish's columns in New York Times, the op-ed page. But at the same time, it's not about indoctrinating students from one perspective, but kind of lay it out where my first principle always is to historicize, always historicize, talk about history. So if media representations can be considered as texts, then it is important for us to consider the context itself. That one cannot separate the text from the context. So the assumption is, and I might be a little cynical here, that there is a lot of apathy in the student community, a lot of disconnect with what is going on in the outside world. And even as I was teaching these courses post 9/11, most students really didn't feel that the US was actually at war with Iraq. And when we say, well, I always say war against Iraq and not war in Iraq, which kind of dilutes the whole thing about as if America just found itself very conveniently in a place called Iraq and is fighting a war. But it is to kind of get rid of collective psychosis within the student community. And when I say psychosis, I'm talking about this disconnect from reality. And the reality that actually is out there, where all of us can talk about it later on, but the kind of reality that is propounded by the media, CNN, Fox, the mainstream media, but how that kind of a construction of a reality can be deconstructed, can be dismantled. So it's not just about what the media tell us when they're telling us something. So you separate that. What is the media telling us and what are they not telling us? So within that, try to tease out ways of thinking about what it means to watch television, what it means to read newspapers, what it means to keep oneself informed about issues around us. So starting off with basic questions like, why do they hate us? You know, the classic question that was posed by George W. Bush, or they hate our freedoms, and you know, so why do they hate us? And it may come as a surprise to students, and it does usually, that students usually think that the answer is because of our freedoms. And it's not about freedoms. It's not as if people are envious of the freedom of speech in America, but they hate or they dislike or they're very skeptical about America's role in the world, given the history of the American Empire. So the course basically, the kind of courses I teach is to deconstruct media discourses, deconstruct discourses of morality, discourses of being virtuous, and what it means to talk about justified wars and unjustified wars. So Iraq becomes an unjustified war, and Afghanistan becomes a justified war. So why should Afghanistan become a justified war? I mean, so, and that is, public opinion actually is mobilized in favor of the justification of war, actually. And you're talking about one of the poorest countries in the world. Surely Al-Qaeda is located in the mountains of Afghanistan, but just doesn't mean that you go and bomb Afghanistan back to the Stone Age, which is what Donald Rumsfeld said, that we're going to bomb Afghanistan back to the Stone Age. And so talk about these things, and of course students do become uncomfortable when suddenly there's an alternative perspective here, and it's not about telling them what truth is all about, but it is to say that there are different ways of looking at media discourses and how war is represented. So when I introduce concepts like imperialism or neo-imperialism or empire, it is a use of certain words that in our present political lexicon that may make people a little skeptical, like why are we using terms like imperialism and empire when they belong to the colonial era? But then I say, no, they have made a return in a different avatar, in a different form. So, so we talk about those things. And when we talk about an informal empire, you talk about, I introduce the context here, the history here, that out of the, when you look at research between 1990 and 2001, there were about 57 conflicts documented across the world, and only 3 of them were actually fought interstate: Iraq, Kuwait, India, Pakistan, and Ethiopia and Eritrea, and the others were all over territory and natural resources. Oil, water. So even representing conflict itself becomes, or representing war itself becomes highly problematic in the literature itself. So when I talk about empire, I introduce a kind of broad themes where we talk about global governance through the UN Security Council, where countries from the South, from the third world, are denied any veto right, or even not even entertained as members, the exclusive 5. So you talk about global governance, where they set the tone for the discourse of human rights itself, what regimes ought to practice. And then you also talk about US military dominance, where we have close to 200 military satellites operating in space. The US is such a powerful country that it dominates the airspace. And so in that sense, the US is one of the most powerful countries, in fact, the most powerful country in the world. And also talking about US superiority in global entertainment, which one cannot disregard, because when one is talking about Hollywood, you're also talking about war in one sense, how war is represented in Hollywood itself. So the US superiority in Hollywood is very, very, it's an important point to discuss, and that's something that students relate to very, very easily.